happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Looks like we avoided the storm, right? It's kind of a funny thing. You're watching that. It was dead. I'm in Keene today. I'm actually working from home, and it was dead. It was had its path, dead center right through Keene, and seemed to loop around. So, in any event, today we're going to do a summer review. So it's going to be a speed session. And I went back and took some highlights all the way back into May. And then we'll take a couple week break, and then we'll pick it back up the Monday after Labor Day, which I believe is the 13th. So in any event, summer review, and please feel free to chat in your comments and observations. Always good for us to hear from each other. So we'll pick up with where we left off, right? We talked about forgiveness, and we had a 3-part session on that. So, part of forgiveness is in realizing that other people are on their journeys just like we are. And the things that we might look as a grievance, right, with somebody else, really is part of their life experiment, just like we're making life experiments, and we're learning along the way. And so I think that's one of the things that, right, we always want to keep in mind, is that rarely are people really out to do us harm, right? We're just all on a journey together, and at times our lines intersect. In forgiveness, it's not a team sport, okay? It only matters what you do. It doesn't matter what the other person does. And that's a full stop statement, okay? Where it's not true forgiveness if it's conditional. I'll forgive you if you say you're sorry. Well, that's not forgiveness, okay? That's conditional, all right? And so just remember, right, when we're dealing with forgiveness, it's really more about how we feel inside, right? Moving out of your lower chakras, into your heart, and you're really providing forgiveness, and you're doing it in a way that's unconditional. That's true forgiveness. Doesn't mean we don't learn lessons. It doesn't mean that we don't draw boundaries, okay? It just means that when we forgive somebody, it doesn't really matter whether they say they're sorry or not. And we talked about letting go. And I think letting go is a good segue into forgiveness. And in the letting go process, I think, we look at life circumstances, and this isn't necessarily something that somebody does to us, right? Or an interaction that we've had with somebody. But this is really more about, life has circumstances, and they happen really for us to learn from. And so when we're having a life experience, right, that didn't maybe turn out the way we thought, and it kind of grabs us, gets our attention, right? Well, in that moment, am I going to be a victim? Or am I going to be a beneficiary? In other words, am I going to let this thing slow me down? Or am I going to be a beneficiary of the knowledge that I'm getting from life's events? And it's a choice. And we talked about 5 different ways in which we can let go. And the first one was riding the wave, okay? You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf, which is the quote here on the slide. So, when you're riding the wave, you always get to the beach, okay? And we learn to, twist and turn with the waves, and enjoy the ride, right? Like rarely do you see surfers have a frown on their face when they're riding a wave. And kind of a philosophy I've had for years is that no matter where you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Otherwise, you'd be someplace else. So in that moment, okay, going back to a victim or a beneficiary, in that moment, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Here, what's the purpose for me to be here? What's the reason? Okay. If we can leverage our curiosity on that, it helps us to let go. All rivers lead to the oceans, right? Rivers are small and narrow, the ocean is wide. So, when we're on our kind of small and narrow journey, maybe it's a little bit harder to see where we're going, but once we get to the ocean, it's pretty obvious where we are. The other one is don't get stuck, right? I mean, when we don't let go of things, we're stuck in the past. Okay? When we don't let go, we are stuck in the past. It's reverse time travel. We're moving backwards in time, and that's where we're staying. There's some part of our life, some part of us that's stuck. And the last of the 5 strategies for letting go of things is nothing's random. Look for the new opportunities. Again, think about yourself as a beneficiary of an experience, okay? Where are those new opportunities? I'm not here by mistake. These things that happened were not a mistake. I was supposed to learn something. What is it? So then prior to that, probably now we're going back into, June or July, we talked about potential. And how do we, how do we kind of identify potential? Potential is, I always kind of like this definition of it. Potential is a state of being that already exists that we haven't yet realized. It's a state of being that already exists, but we haven't realized it yet. And part of being able to use your imagination, is to identify potential, is to use your imagination, okay? And when we let go of the known for the unknown, right, is when our imagination will help us find potential. We're all wired in a certain way, and I think we all, it's a little like a computer program. We all kind of come out of the box the same way, and then the computer program does what it does based on the user. Each one of us individually being the user. And so when we're talking about our imagination, we can look at it in probably three different tiers, right? There's my comfort zone, okay? That's the known. And then there's the growth zone. And that's, that's a little bit more of the unknown. I'm a little unsure about this, but this is where I'm going to grow my knowledge. And then the danger zone is when you're completely outside of your comfort zone, like complete and total. And so we get the most of our imagination, right? And our imagination helps us to find potential, helps us find it, okay? Because we really can't find all the potential without kind of imagining something new. And so we get to understand and leverage our imagination when we're outside of our comfort zone, when we're outside of our known world or our known way of thinking, okay? And you find those in the growth zone, and you really find those in the danger zone, all right? When we're brave enough to go, the growth zone is kind of like, okay, fine, right? I pushed myself a little bit. The danger zone, you push yourself a lot, okay? That's where you get the big payback, right? No risk, no return. So for us to be able to get to understanding where potential lies, we have to be able to use our imagination to leverage it. And, imagination, kind of by definition, is the act or power of forming a mental image of something not present to the senses or never wholly seen or perceived before. And so that's why you have to leave the known world, right? Your known world, right? For the unknown, to be able to leverage imagination. Because where we are today, and I'll tell you, it's a kind of an interesting process. So our comfort zone today, for most of us, at one point, was most likely either a growth zone or a danger zone. That's kind of how life works, right? We progress along, we stretch a little bit, we get a little comfortable, we stay there for a while, kind of collect ourselves, and then we move to the growth into the danger zone, right? And so it's our ability to be able to sense what can I realize? What can I envision? What can I see that I've never seen before? Well, how can I see myself doing something that I never really thought I could do, right? And that's how imagination parlays itself into finding the potential. And where we find them, and in the places that we've never looked before. And I always like the metaphor of, lighting a match in dark corners, because that's where all the juicy stuff lives. That's where you find the things that you didn't think you were going to find, right? And when you strike that match in the dark corner, that's probably the danger zone, right? And all of us, right, will have some aversion to that. It's just kind of human nature. But when we get outside of that comfort zone and we strike that match in the dark corner, right, that's where all the cool stuff lives. I was scuba diving once, and I was in I don't know, it's about 80 feet of water, and I was kind of going into a cave, and I wasn't quite sure It was off the coast of Maine, and actually the Isle of Shoals, off the coast of Maine, Portsmouth. And I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't sure about this cave. Obviously I'd never been in it before, but I had this brand new dive light. I don't know, it was like a million candle dive light or something. And I ended up going up into the cave. It wasn't very deep, so I wasn't in too much danger. But I remember going up into the cave, and I shined this light on this cod that had been in this cave. And one of the first things that struck me was, well, this fish has never seen a light like this before, right? This fish has never seen the light of day like this. So, striking matches in dark corners is where all the cool stuff lives. Now we're starting to wrap up here. So a growth mindset. So, a simple way of looking at a growth mindset is probably glass half empty, glass half full. And when we're looking for, a growth mindset, what we're really looking at is the difference between how we might look at how we would define a failure, right? And I think if you look at these two silhouettes, on the blue one, right, is, failure is an opportunity to grow, but a fixed mindset would be failure is a limit of my abilities. Let's really think about that for a minute. Now, it kind of goes back, this kind of goes back all the way to the slide, one of the earlier slides this morning, right? We're talking about that, no matter where you are, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So we can look at failures, or things that didn't go well. So I never really look at anything as a failure. I just look at it as I just found another way not to do this, right? And so your growth mindset is really about, you can kind of read here what's in the silhouette, right? Challenges help me grow. I can learn to do anything I want. Feedback is constructive. I like to try new things. That's a growth mindset where you're constantly enriching yourself with new information, okay? Trying to do new things, right? And they don't have to be dramatic, okay? Try something, try one thing new every day for a week. It doesn't have to be big. It could be like tasting a food or reading an article that you would have necessarily read, but try one thing. And that's a growth mindset. Fixed mindset goes kind of back to more like early and mid last century science, where they talked about the brain that, once you got to a certain age, that was it. Once you got to be like 17 or 18 or something like that, your brain, that was it. You weren't, you weren't going to get any more educated. And, whatever your personality was, whatever your mindset was at the time, they didn't look at it as, they didn't understand neuroplasticity, which is really about how the mind grows and how we're able to grow our minds and grow our perspective on things, by our neural connections. Okay. And so by learning new things literally changes your mind, right? But you go back 100 years ago or a little bit, more than that, it was the science of the time, okay, was that once you got to a certain age, I think it was late teens, early 20s, that was it. It was over. You were done. Whoever you were then, that's all you were ever going to be. And you think about how crazy that is, right? And you take a look at how people really can change their lives at no matter what age, by being willing to learn new things and try new things. And again, they don't all have to be big. They can just be little things, okay? And that's a growth mindset, okay? And when we have a growth mindset, we're committed to the unknown, going just a little bit deeper into the unknown. And, you go a little bit deeper every day until all of a sudden you realize, holy smokes, look how far I've come, right? And that can be true in a lot of things. It can be true about our health. It can be true about our relationships. It can be true about our profession, our families, true about our personal well-being, okay? And our personal, mental or spiritual well-being, right? That's all about it. That's all about a growth mindset. a little bit every day, right? And there's no such thing as failure. Failure, that's a label, okay? And that's the label of a fixed mindset. So that is our speed review of summer. It's amazing how fast summer has gone by, and it's been loads of fun doing this. We'll start with a whole new flight of stuff. New topics coming this fall, which I'm working on now, and I'm looking forward to it. So I just got one chat in from Allie. I heard this quote yesterday: never underestimate the big importance of small things. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, because it is the small things, right? I mean, things don't. Yes, we can make big leaps, of course. Okay. But they're really kind of rare if you think about it. And it's that commitment, that personal commitment that I'm going to be slightly better today than I was yesterday. I don't have to be huge. Okay. I'm going to be more thoughtful. I'm going to be whatever. I'm going to, be more tolerant, whatever the case may be. I'm going to be more inquisitive, right? All those types of things. And probably the best way to end this is really, think about the growth mindset. And I didn't put it on here, but the book, I think when we did this section this summer, this session, there's a book named Carol DeWitt called Growth Mindset. Carol DeWitt, Growth Mindset. And it's easy read, lots of fun, and full of great information. So. All righty. Well, that's a wrap for today. Good to be with everybody, and we will see each other on the other end of Labor Day. So take care.